All right, guys, Anthony, Phil, give us your vote tomorrow.
Yeah, in a shorter trial, I would say Monday, because the jurors want to enjoy the weekend and come back on Monday, come in with their verdict early in the morning. I suspect on this case that there's a good chance for tomorrow. If there's during jury selection,
we can't even define what criminal negligence is right here. We can't even define what gross negligence is. They got to have 12 people that got to agree. They got a lot of exhibits, a lot of witnesses. Yeah. I mean, I think they're taking their job very seriously. The judge has conducted the trial very professionally. I don't think it necessarily is going to be very quick. I mean,
well, talk about those jury instructions. There's just the one charge, but there's some other factors with it.
Well, yeah. In any case like that, you're gonna have a number of instructions trying. The law tries to define for the jurors as best as possible a fair explanation of the law. But typically speaking, one of the things that jurors tend to do is they go back in that jury deliberation room, they select the foreman, and typically a foreman's never done it before. He's never sat and presided over his fellow jurors before. So the first thing they do is they say, let's take a vote. And that first vote guides the remaining deliberations.
And if the first vote is unanimous, then are they done? I mean, they can't go in there for an hour.
What will happen typically is if they're close to a verdict or unanimous, then they'll say, well, we should talk about it for a little bit. And then they'll talk about it, and they'll review it. But by and large, on a case like this, it can happen quickly if the defense failed. And I think the defense failed. Ultimately, when it came to their turn, when it came down to arguments, they did not do what they needed to do.
I'm surprised how short Chernoff was in the closing argument. I mean, you would think they would have gone through every point of those 6 examples of Steinberg, the 17 examples of Schaefer. I mean, they had to. They're losing.
But what about they went with the one argument that if it were anybody else but Michael Jackson's doctor, would we be
But he
here?
just threw that out there. It was never discussed in the trial itself.
Yeah, and you're right. And he threw a couple other things out there, and he didn't really have the evidence to back it up. And he didn't spend enough time really discussing those points and trying to give substance to them so that the jurors would gravitate toward him. He made several lines. He made a comment that Dr. Conrad Murray was brought into, he was a small fish in a dirty pond, and left it.
Like he was implying with criticizing Fleek, the coroner's investigator, and Alvarez, that there was some sort of conspiracy to convict Dr. Murray, like these other people had some motive to do that.
And when Tom Mesereau was here, I asked him about the danger of attacking Michael Jackson and what that might do to the jury. And perhaps they treated that whole situation with Michael Jackson, his addiction and whatever they wanted to call it, with kid gloves, and that in the end it might hurt them.
Well, the thing is, the defense could have not necessarily gone after Michael Jackson, but they could have talked about his addiction in a very sympathetic way. They could have talked about it in the form of a disease. They could have talked about Michael Jackson as a human being who was suffering and still got the evidence in that was required, or still got at least their theory in that the cause of death was Michael Jackson. They didn't have to demonize him.
So, yeah, I mean, it seems to me, of course, we're all sitting there in hindsight, but Michael Jackson, self-admitted prescription drug addict and abuser, was in rehab for it. I mean, wouldn't a more plausible defense have been he had a lifetime of abusing his body with prescription drugs, and unfortunately his heart gave out, and our guy happened to be there?
You know, I know that the judge limited the scope of that.
He did limit that,
but they certainly could have gone a little bit deeper with that without impacting, you know, the great career that he had, or the huge personality that he had.
Unless there was no evidence of that.
Well, but this is the thing, and this is one of the things that troubles me. If Conrad Murray had been on the stand, he could have talked in more detail about the situation he encountered and how it was so unique.
Okay, more when we come back. Lots of